Hello, beautiful people. It's a girl Genie and it's Genie's signature. So, welcome you all to my beautiful tutorial for today. So, this is the inspiration and this is what I made. So, if this is what you're interested in, please sit back, relax because this is going to be a well detailed tutorial. So, my client didn't want her own sleeves to be too long, so that is why the sleeve is like that on the thumbnail. So if you want to see how I created all these patterns on this beautiful gown, please I'll implore you to sit back, relax and enjoy the ride. It's very beautiful. If you want to look different from what you usually wear, I would suggest you go for this style. If you're looking for a style to make for mamas in the house, like an advanced person, I would say, I would advise you go for this beautiful style because it's quite scintillating. This camera is not really doing justice to the beauty of this cloth because as in physically when you see it you can see how beautiful it is and how the stones are all glittering and looking very beautiful. So let's get over to this tutorial. So this is it as I was showing you before I start cutting the beautiful fabric. So I folded my fabric into two and then I'll be cutting both the front and the back simultaneously. So I added 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance for the back piece. So now I've gotten the length of my fabric and of course I folded based on the hip line and sewing allowances because that's the biggest body part of the measurement. So the first thing I got now is my half length that is from the shoulder to the waist, and then the next line is the shoulder to the hip line. So I'll be rolling all that out now into a straight line. So I see you all. Thank you all for the love. Thank you for viewing my tutorials. I really appreciate. Thank you for sharing. May God continue to bless us all. So right there now, I'll be taking the shoulder measurement divided by 2. So I'll divide my shoulder measurement, that of my client, I beg your pardon. I divide by 2, add half an inch for joining of the sleeves, and then whatever I have on that straight end, I'm going to be bringing it down for my armhole. And then I'll repeat the same thing right there just to form a straight line like so. So if you're used to my tutorials, you're supposed to know all this by now. But let's say you just came across it for the first time, you're welcome, and this is how we roll. So for my neck width, I'll be making use of 4 inches, and then I'll be slanting my shoulder by 1 inch. And if this is your first time as you're scrolling by, please don't forget to hit on that subscribe button because it's virtually free. And kindly hit on the notification icon so that you'll be notified anytime I upload beautiful videos. So now I divided the bust measurement by 4, added 1 inch for ease, and then 1.5 inches for sewing allowance. Now this is not sacrosanct, like it's not mandatory. You can use half an inch, you can use 1 inch, depending on how big or how free your client wants has to be. You can go ahead and do the needful. So I'm connecting my armhole like so. By dividing the armhole into 2, you can see that I got the middle point, and then I came in by half an inch for the front armhole, and then I did the normal for the back armhole. So that's basically what I'm trying to connect right there. So the next thing we're going to do is to go over to a waist measurement and then divide the waist by 4. So whatever I used on the bust measurement is what I'll be using on my client's waist measurement because she's on the big side. So I'm going to be using exactly the same measurement right there. So I just connected like so. So the next measurement now is the hip measurement. So for the hip measurement, just divide your client's hip by 4 and then you add 1 inch for ease and then 1.5 inches as a sewing allowance. So my client's hip is 58 inches. So that is basically why the old tape had to like finish when I was taking the measurement, like defining it as you can see. So I'll just go ahead and then mark whatever that is needed. And when I'm marking all these lines, please take note that I'm not marking it from the zipper allowance. I'm marking it from the front piece that I placed there. So in case it's the first time, so you won't get confused. Don't start your markings from the zipper. Start your markings after the zipper. That is where I placed the front piece from. So whatever I have on the hip line, minus the sewing allowance. That's what I'll be taking to the length of the gown. So after taking that to the length of the gown, you can see I didn't add this sewing allowance. I just divided the hip by 4 and then I placed it there. So I'll just, from here now, I'll just add about 5 to 6 inches extra just to form a bit of a line, because it's not going to be having a slit at the back. So that your client can walk properly. So you just add about 5 to 6 inches and then slant it like that, so that it will give you a little bit of a shape. So now for the neckline, for the back neck depth, I'll be making use of 1 inch. And then for the front neck depth, I'll be making use of 6 inches. So now this is also entirely dependent on your choice. So if you want it to be freer or deeper, you can go ahead and do as necessary. So I've connected all those and then I'll go ahead and cut this out. So before that, I want to remove the bulginess of the zipper. So I'll come to the back, the zipper allowance, and then around the waist area, I'll come in by half an inch, slant it up and then slant it down like so. This is just to avoid bulginess of the zipper at the back. So I'll go ahead and cut this out. So I'll be cutting out the back piece first, cut out the neckline, cut out the shoulder slopes, cut out the armhole for the back, and then cut out the side seams. And so that is it for the back. And then I'll come to the zipper area, slit open it, and then cut out the half inch that we used to remove the bulginess of the zipper. As you can see, that is what I'm cutting out right now. And then you slit the remaining open all the way down. So we're basically through with the back, and then I notched my zipper. So I'll be keeping this aside because it's not going to be used for now. So for the front, I'll adjust the armhole and then the neck depth respectively. So this is what we have. So now I'll open this up so that we'll go straight over to the next step. So after cutting these, I made sure that before doing any other thing, I cut out my lining because it's going to be having a full lining. So now we're going to do these beautiful designs that we have in the front. So you can see that I've gone ahead to cut out my lining. Just make sure you've cut out your lining and keep it somewhere. So I'll open this. Now we're going to be marking on the right side of the fabric, not on the wrong side, because you need those traces on the right side of the fabric when you want to place those black patterns on it. So you need to mark it on the right side of the fabric. Or if you mark it on the wrong side of the fabric, you're not going to be getting anything. So now I wanted to I drew this first upper part like this, but I later changed my mind. So please continue to watch because there's a twist at this upper part that I later reintroduced. I didn't use this method that I'm showing you again because when I wanted to sew it, it was just not forthcoming. You know, it's like curved in the front. So as it's curved, it was a little bit difficult to sew. So I had to use another method. So I did not use this method. I'm going to be showing you later on in the video the method that I used and that worked well and brought out the beauty of the clothes. But for the lower part, you can keep going and I had to watch because that's exactly how I did it and it came out nice. It's just the upper part that gave a little bit of a tough time because of the curvy part. So as you can see, I just measured about 1 inch from my neck line, neck width, and then had that curve done to meet the other side. Just follow exactly what I'm doing here because exactly what I did here is what I later did on the second option that I told you about. It's just that I did that on a paper. So after cutting out on a paper and then placed on my fabric and then cut it out. So that was easiest way to achieve it because if you do it like this you're not going to be getting it, I beg you. So just watch till the end so that you see how I later did it to achieve that beautiful design. So that was a little bit wide, so I had to do it like that to reduce it. So this is just it for now. So I'm not really bothered about this because, like I said, I later tried another method that worked perfectly well. So now, because I had to clean it out, so now I'll just come to the lower design just to show you how the lower design is done. After I'm through with this, I'll be showing you how to do the upper part very well. So I came down for the waist, shoulder to the hip line because that design started from the hip line. So on the hip line right there, and then you come to the length of your fabric, you mark your sewing allowance because you don't want your design running through your sewing allowance. And then from the sewing allowance, I came in by about 2 inches or 3 inches, and then I came down here, I marked 3 inches. So I'll be connecting that in a curving manner to meet this line that we have here. So what I was trying to say there was that that was the sewing allowance. So I'll just use my hands. So as a fashion designer, you just have to be creative. You just have to know how to do so many things. It's not only about sewing. You see now drawing is involved. Everything is involved. So I'll mark 3 inches here again, and then I'll come here. I'll mark 3 inches as well. So you can mark 2.5 from up there, and then connect it to meet this line right here, like so. You can see this is the first line. So I'm going to go ahead and do, because we're going to be having about 4 lines right there. So I'll go ahead and repeat almost the same thing I did on the first one all through that line. So the distance between the two lines was about 2 inches. And then I came down there, I marked 3 inches. I came down here, I marked 3 inches, and then I cuffed it out to meet it. So it's quite easy. There's nothing really so difficult about this. You just need to take your time and then be creative about what you're doing, and you're going to be getting it pretty well. So I have the second line, as you can see. So we're going to the third line now. So it's pretty much the same thing like I said. So just mark the lines like so. As you're marking there, you come here, you mark the same thing, so that when you're carving out your lines, it's going to be meeting that exact point that you have marked, and then you're going to be having even lines. You can see that I made a mistake going through the second line, so I had to readjust that, as you can see. So that's the third line. So we're going to be to the fourth line very shortly. So you can see that as I was doing this thing, I was confirming from the picture just to make sure that I got exactly what was in the picture as best as possible. So this is the last line, and then I'll carve it like this, and then mark 3 inches here and then 3 inches there, and then curve it up like so. So you can see that we've gotten all the lines in perfect place, and they are all uniform. Like, not no one line is bigger than one because I used the same measurement for each and every line. So now this is what we have. Just trying to do that one very well. So you can see the lines. So I'm going to be using a plain fabric. I used a doll face material, but I ironed a gum stay on it to give it strength, to make it stable, so that it will be easy to sew when we want to sew it. So that is basically how to do this. And then I'll be cutting out long strips of it. I'll be cutting out 3 inches. The line is 3 inches wide. So I'll be cutting out 3 inches wide. And then the length is going to be dependent on the curvy part of what we just drew. So I'll just go ahead and mark out 3 inches all the way. So my iron burnt that part when I was ironing this, so don't bother about that. It happens in sewing, you know. So I'll just cut this out. So I cut out like about 4 or 5, yeah, long strips, like so. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the comment section, and I'll be there to oblige and answer all your questions. So having done that, that is what we have. So now I just want to show you how I did achieve that upper part. Now I had to make use of a paper, like I said earlier. So I got my paper, and exactly what I did on the fabric is what I'll be repeating on the paper. It's just that the paper is going to be serving as a template for me to cut out that curvy part before I place on the fabric, so that it's going to be giving me a very neat and clean job. So that is why I decided to make use of the paper. I came in by 1 inch from my neck width and then marked another 1 inch, as you can see. And then from the shoulder on the other side, I'll come down by about 4 or 5 inches, like so. I'll mark it. And then for the width of the design, I'll be making use of about 2.5 or 3 inches as well. So that is what I just marked there, and then I'll curve it to meet the line, like so. So you can see we have gotten our first curve. So for the second curve, I'll just, from the same shoulder, I'll just go back by about 1 inch. And then from that first point that I marked around the armhole, I came down about 4 inches from there. And then on the shoulder, I'll come out by 1 inch and then we'll mark another 1 inch, like so. So I'll just be carving and then 3 inches right there. So I'll just carve it out. Just make sure your hand is as straight as possible. But if you feel like your hand cannot get the drift, you can just make use of a curved ruler. I just believe that freehand is still better in this case. Just take your time to do it. So you can see what we have. So this is what we have now. So I'll go ahead and cut this out. Place some of my fabric, that is the doll face, that already has a gum stay iron to it, or an interfacing of your, any interfacing of your choice. And then I'll be back to show you, but let's just cut this out first before going further. So I just decided to label this so that I won't mumble out up everything. So I decided to label that 2, and then this first one is going to be 1. So I'm just cutting that out, as you can see. So let me reintroduce my fabric and then show you how it's going to be looking as I did before we place it. You can see that I've cleaned out that first thing I did. So this is the how it's going to be. That's the first one. And then this is going to be the second one right there, like so. So I'm going to bring my fabric, like I said, the plain doll face, and then cut this out and then go and sew it, and then I'll be right back to show you the next step. So I've gone ahead to do that. As you can see that this is exactly how it looks. So I've placed it on it and I've sewn it on my fabric. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to sew it. I've not sewn it earlier, I just did. So I'm going to be making use of this, they call it rice. So you use it to design clothes. So I bought this purple color because I didn't see the peach color. I wanted to use the peach color so that it would bring out the beauty, but I didn't see it, so I just had to buy this purple color that I saw, and I'll be using it to cover up the stitches on both sides of the design, like that. So whatever I do on this upper part is basically what I'll be repeating at this lower part. So you can see that I've gone ahead to sew that of the lower part as well. So I'll use this design to design it, and then I'll put back. So I've gone ahead to do that. As you can see, this is how it's looking. I've not given it a press. I just finished and then decided to show you first before going further to do anything. So the next thing I'll be doing after this is to go ahead and turn with my lining. I'll be using my lining to turn the neckline, and then do that of the back as well. Fix my zipper join the shoulders, and if possible I'm going to be closing out the fabric before coming back to show you the next step. So for the neckline, make sure you leave those inches around the neckline, knowing fully well that you're going to be turning your clothes with your lining. So I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what we have. So I've fixed my zipper, I've joined it on the shoulders, and I've equally closed it out. So the only basic thing left is for us to fix our sleeves and then hem the length of the fabric. As you can see, I just decided to leave that for later. So the next thing to do is to cut out our sleeves, and then I'll be showing you how to cut the sleeves right about now. So for some of my subscribers that have been asking of how I cut out the sleeve for the ashoke that I did, like the v-neck ashoke. This is like somehow similar to that sleeve. So just want to use a stone to kill two birds by showing how I did that here. It's very easy. There's nothing so paparazzi about it. So I'm going to be marking the length of my client's sleeve. So I'll cut out the excess. I already have detailed tutorials on how to cut a basic sleeve. So this is like basically cutting out a basic sleeve and just doing a little bit of a twist. That's just about it. So I'm cutting out the excess. So now I'm going to be getting my shoulders. My client's armhole measurement divided by 2 plus 1 inch. So for your armhole, you divide by 2, you don't divide by 4. And then for the cap side, I'll be coming down about 5 inches, yeah, for the cap side. So now on the cap side, I'll be placing my client's sleeve body, or Christian mother as we call it, and then I'll carve it out like so in form of an inverted S, and then connect. So after connecting that, just make sure that your armhole is enough and you have an allowance, and then you're going to be slanting it like this in form of A shape. So you don't need your round sleeve measurement because you want that sleeve to be looking A-shaped. So that is basically how to cut that sleeve. There's really nothing so difficult about it. Yeah, so you can do well to try it out. So this is the sleeve. I cut out the two sleeves at the same time and make sure that it's on fold. So now in order to get that design on the sleeve, you can see the design on the sleeve. So in order to get that design, you're going to be getting your doll face with an interfacing, of course, and then you open up your sleeve like this, and then you place your doll face like this. This is too wide, so I'll be trimming out the excesses. I don't want it to be more than 2 inches. I used 3 inches for the other main fabric, so I don't want the sleeve to be bigger than the. So I just trim that out. And then I'll place this like this. So you're going to be having another one for the other sleeve. So before placing like this, make sure you fold your length allowance. Just fold the M first before placing this. And then you sew it, and then you use this same rice decoration to adorn the both sides of the sleeve like that. And so that was how we arrived here. After doing that, I now closed up my sleeve so you can see that it's looking A-shaped. So these are the two sleeves. So I'm going to go ahead now and then attach it to the fabric, and then I'll be back to show you. So I've gone ahead to attach it, and this is what we have. So you can see how it's looking. It's looking very, very beautiful. It's looking clean and neat. So the next thing for me to do now is to just go ahead and adorn it with the stones. I don't have the machine to do that, so I'll be employing somebody outside to do that. So that was how we arrived at that beautiful piece. Thank you all, and God bless. See you all in my next tutorial. Ciao. Bye.